Good evening, and thank you for tuning in. Sorry about the technical glitches. I am pleased to join you for this very special virtual town hall where I continue my work on behalf of the people of Illinois' 4th Congressional District and all the working families across the nation. I'm proud to serve in my 4th term in Congress, where I sit on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and on the Judiciary Committee. I'm also the whip of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, where I'm using my position to push and encourage Democrats to embrace strong, proactive policies, prioritizing working families amid the damages caused by the Trump destruction. As a member of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, I also fight for that community. I've been working with my colleagues to present a unified front against Trump's racist attacks and blatantly target our Latino and immigrant communities. Tonight, I will be giving a federal update on the ongoing government shutdown and budget fight, attacks on health care, and the escalating assault on immigrant families across the country and their impact on our communities. As of this morning, the federal government has been shut down as a result of Republicans taking our country hostage. Yesterday, I voted for the stopgap bill to protect healthcare access because I refuse to let Republicans hold the country hostage, and I'm committed to protecting the health access to people everywhere. This is the second big shutdown that we've experienced under Trump. I was sworn in during a government shutdown in January of 2019. That happened because Trump moved the negotiating goalpost on border wall funding. But the context of this year's shutdown is very different. Trump and Project 2025 were set on dismantling the federal government and firing federal workers. Since taking office, Republicans have been obsessed with the destruction and, in many cases, illegal cuts. Since January, they have taken money away from healthcare, public safety, public media, housing, veterans care, and given even more tax breaks and freebies to the ultra-rich, all while increasing spending for the Gestapo crackdowns that we're experiencing in our communities. Americans pay the price while the billionaires freeload. This shutdown is only the latest of Trump's attempts to limit funding to states and municipalities while mass firing federal employees. But let me be clear, my offices are open. We're still here to help you with casework and to fight for you through this chaos. We'll talk more about what that means in terms of government services later in this program. I'll be working here and in DC to fight for the government to reopen while also mitigating the manufactured chaos and real destruction of his policies. This summer, Republicans passed Trump's landmark bill, a budget reconciliation bill that rips millions of Americans off their health care coverage to give those tax cuts to the real rich. I fought every step of the way. This is in the midst of Trump's massive assault on public health by withholding billions from hospitals, forcing agencies to share patients' private data, spreading conspiracy theories, and dismantling reproductive care. I've co-sponsored bills to protect healthcare access and fought to expand community health centers. Now, Republicans are looking to slash even more, letting key healthcare tax credits expire. About 18,000 people in my district rely on those tax credits. I'm fighting to keep them alive. Democrats are fighting to keep those priorities funded, and I won't back down. I want to turn next to immigration. As an immigrant myself, representing a district where 1 in 3 persons are foreign born, These attacks are personal. When Trump comes after immigrant families, he's attacking us, our neighbors, and the very fabric of our communities and our nation. I've been fighting Trump's hate-fueled agenda since day one, because when he targets immigrant families, he's targeting us. That's why I've been exposing his cruelty at every turn and fighting back in Congress and on the streets throughout our district. They are carrying out mass surveillance, kidnapping people from their jobs and their neighborhoods right off the streets, locking families in brutal facilities, sometimes 30 people for a cell meant to hold a fraction of that, and deporting them to even more dangerous conditions. I've demanded oversight, accountability, and justice for every single case. Republicans have poured over $175 billion of our taxpayer dollars into fueling more violence against immigrant families. I voted against these measures, co-sponsored protections, and rallied with families in Chicagoland to make it clear that we will not stand down. Our communities have been directly targeted. When Trump sued Illinois, Cook County, and Chicago for being welcoming, I stood with local leaders and we secured a victory when the lawsuit was thrown out by a federal judge. Now, they've escalated with Operation Midway Blitz, flooding our streets with masked thugs, portraying themselves as agents who are cowardly targeting hard-working residents. I've demanded transparency and investigations, and I'll keep raising hell until these perpetrators are held accountable. The same way that we held fascists accountable throughout our history, this is not normal. And that's why I've taken action to make sure that the killing of Silverio Villegas Gonzalez is not covered up or forgotten. That's why I've made it a point to talk on the House floor about the lawless detention of U.S. citizens in Elgin and demanded accountability for the inhumane concentration camp conditions at the Broadview Processing Center. I will not let these families be torn apart in silence. When DHS formally requested the illegal deployment of National Guard troops to Chicago, I stood up immediately and made it clear we will not accept soldiers patrolling our streets. This was never about public safety. It exposed how they profile hardworking people, even U.S. citizens, targeting us because of how we look, where we work, what we drive, and where they think we may come from. And I have warned, once institutions explode in size and budget and only serve to control, they don't have any limits on their power and they seek to expand it. Like the military-industrial complex, they find new enemies, new people to target, new excuses to keep the money flowing, and the machinery of fear and propaganda. And that's why I'm fighting to shut down this illegal and rotten route. I will not look away. This is bigger than one community, bigger than one city. It's about the kind of country that we want to be and our people want to become. And Illinois will not be intimidated. In this moment of federal overreach, we are bringing communities together to fight back, and we will continue our fight. We are going to fight racism. We're not going to fight racism with racism, but rather we're going to fight with solidarity. I've used my platform in Congress to expose the cruelty and the callousness of the mass deportation agenda and to demand truth and dignity for every family that deserves to live free from state terror. This is a very dark time for our country, but especially our immigrant communities. But public opinion surveys show what Trump is doing is deeply unpopular and not backed by the majorities of the American public. And let me be honest, even inside our own party, some voices tell us to stay quiet, to focus on other issues, to play it safe, but we cannot afford silence. Our communities cannot wait. And despite the intent by Republicans to criminalize, terrorize, and convince others that their agenda is inevitable, we continue to act by protecting our communities, raising awareness about our rights, and empowering you with information, mobilizing and working across coalitions. To be more specific, here's what I've done to fight back on this extremist agenda. I led and signed multiple letters to the Department of Health and Human Services and Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. I've co-sponsored bills to protect healthcare access and affordability. I've advocated for expanding funding for federally qualified health centers and community health centers. I've joined an amicus brief in the Medina versus Planned Parenthood to ensure that health care is available. On immigration, we're fighting back. I've led key oversight letters, including a letter from the Illinois Democratic delegation opposing attacks on welcoming policies, a letter seeking transparency about what's happening at Broadview, and a letter demanding an independent investigation into the death, the killing of Silverio. I've signed oversight letters to federal agencies demanding transparency and oversight. I've joined over a dozen amicus briefs, including those defending birthright citizenship, healthcare access, and worker protections. I've spoken out at rallies and press conferences with labor leaders, health justice coalitions, and immigrants' rights advocates. My office continues to connect with people to legal resources and organize Know Your Rights events and help families navigate this challenging moment. I know that times are hard, but know that our power lies in each other. Our job is to stand up to those who try to rule for the few and stand with the people who make this country work. And that's why I'm proud to fight for working families, not just here tonight, but every day, in the day-to-day battles that don't make headlines, but change lives. So here's what you can do. Support nonprofits and community-based organizations doing the on-the-ground work. Be present in the democratic process. Stay informed, attend events, and vote in every election, locally, statewide, and nationally. Talk to your family, your neighbors, and your local leaders. Speak out against injustice when you see it. And if you can, volunteer your time and skills, especially in defense of immigrant and working families. Document what you see. We will not let history be rewritten by racists. When leaders at every level, federal, state, county, and city, work together, we can deliver real results. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Congressman. So with that, we will open it up for some questions. Reminder, if you have any questions for the Congressman, you can leave a message on the chat below on the Facebook Live. There's the comment section. You can leave a message there. You can also send us a message on social media through direct message. Reminder that this is a public forum, so any sensitive information about cases, please send us a direct message. Do not post that on the comments. We have here some pre-submitted questions, Congressman. First question from constituents: how will the shutdown impact constituents?
Look, I know that the government shutdown is devastating for many. It's important to note that the White House has discretion over which agencies continue to operate during a shutdown. As of now, ICE, TSA, and other law enforcement agencies will remain operable. As more information is available, my office is prepared to answer your questions about the government shutdown. My office is continuing to submit inquiries to federal agencies, including requesting updates on constituents' behalf, submitting paperwork, and opening new cases. However, many federal employees who work at the federal agencies will be furloughed, including the congressional liaisons who work with our office to resolve constituent casework. My office can still submit your casework request as we normally would, but it's unlikely that our office will hear back from federal agencies until the shutdown ends. And once it does, we expect them to be working through a significant backlog. But essential programs such as Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security should not be affected by a government shutdown. However, programs like Pell Grants, housing assistance, and other benefits may see a sudden or gradual lapse of funding. We'll continue to look into that. What is important here is that we plan the shutdown and that we make it through these challenging times.
Thank you, Congressman. So we have another question from a constituent asking, what's the plan to end the shutdown?
My colleagues and I in the House Democratic Caucus are working around the clock to urge our Republican colleagues to come to the table, negotiate in good faith, and find a solution to end this unnecessary and preventable crisis. Our priorities are clear: protecting working class families. We're fighting for all Americans that have affordable health care. Between hospital closures, doctor shortages, and rising premiums, the American people are getting screwed by the big ugly bill. We need Republicans to stop stonewalling and come to the table so that we can negotiate a bipartisan agreement that addresses the health care crisis that the American people are facing.
Thank you, Congressman. So transitioning here to another topic that we've heard a lot from constituents. You represent a district that has large children population, and so a lot of kids in schools. The question here from one of the constituents, we've seen cuts and an impact to education this past year. What are you doing around education?
In Congress, I've been fighting to increase federal investments in our schools. That includes support for Title I schools, expanding access to Head Start and early Head Start, and pushing for universal pre-K so that every child has the opportunity to start off strong. I've also co-sponsored legislation to make community college tuition free, cancel student debt, and increase Pell Grant debt, and increase funding so that working class students and families aren't locked out of higher education by rising tuition costs. Education doesn't start or end in the classroom. It's about the whole child. And that's why I've advocated for expanding school-based mental health services, ensuring that students have access to meals, and supporting programs that provide safe after-school opportunities as well. I've been leading efforts to hold this administration accountable by protecting and strengthening institutions that serve our communities. For example, I'm a leading advocate in Congress to protect English learner students, countering Trump's attempts to strip them of their civil rights. I'm also fighting the closure of our region's Head Start offices. These targeted closures are threatening access to education, to health, and nutrition for families across the Midwest. Despite Trump's destruction, I'm working closely with parents, educators, and local office officials to defend the rights of all students, regardless of their backgrounds, and ensure that our children, the future of our communities, have every opportunity to thrive.
Thank you, Congressman. Reminder, you're just joining us now on the Facebook Live. We're here with Congressman Garcia. He's taking your live questions. If you have a question, please enter it in the chat below. And if you're on Facebook Live, you can enter the comments section. If you have a question that is sensitive around casework or something specific, we encourage you to send us a direct message instead. So next question here from online. We received a question from social media ahead of time from Celine. Celine wants to know, how can we get Congress to step up and stop Trump in his takeover of the U.S. and stop the Gestapo in our cities?
Well, there's no single answer to this. It's truly going to take everything and everyone to confront Trump's corrupt, inhumane, and violent regime. And we all have a role to play. Obviously, I'm using my voice and my vote in Congress and the bully pulpit that comes with it. And I'm also pushing my colleagues to take stronger stands. My office is also working individually with constituents on a range of casework topics like immigration, job loss, health care, homelessness, veteran support, to provide one-on-one assistance that can help them counteract Trump's chaos and destruction. We are also providing guidance to impacted organizations if they've received requests for information or notices of funding freezes, which are common. We can also support via litigation and the courts with lawyers and organizations nationwide that are looking for stories of impact to make their cases against the administration. And I mentioned the many cases that I've intervened as a friend of the court. I encourage you to get involved with community organizations, volunteer, and support your neighbors. Is there an opposition? That's my advice.
Thank you, Congressman. So again, reminder, please drop any questions you might have in the comments section below in the Facebook Live. Next question here that came to us from one of our constituents. Is there an opposition plan from the members of Congress and the Senate leadership to have a vocal and forceful strategy to slow down as much of these anti-constitutional actions as possible, such as lawsuits, any legal removal actions, etc.?
Yes, there is. And we're trying to stop as many of these illegal actions as possible. I strongly support using all kinds of different strategies to stop Trump's unconstitutional actions, from lawsuits, congressional obstruction, to protests and press conferences. And I've actively participated in all of them. Everyone has a role to play in pushing back. I'm keeping in close touch with Senate colleagues, organizing strategies with allies to fight back against executive and Republican bills that support Trump's agenda on the House floor. And of course, I've been working with state and local partners to try to keep funding going for as long as possible and getting pending grants distributed to recipients across our district, both municipalities and nonprofits.
Thank you, Congressman. Next question here. Reminder, if you have any questions, please drop it in the chat. What services and resources does your office provide for anyone impacted by job loss and or federal cuts?
First of all, we are bracing for the implication of the furloughs on federal employees that will be affected, and of course others who will go without pay, like service members serving in the Army, the Navy, and other parts of the government. If you believe that your benefits have been cut incorrectly, my office can assist with following up with the federal agency, whether it's Medicare or Social Security. As a federal office, we and with your written permission can contact the agencies on your behalf, and we can check on the status of your case and potentially offer additional resources or contacts to assist you.
Thank you, Congressman. We've got a question from the chat. Um, we have Juan Pablo from Chicago wants to know, what advice do you have for U.S. citizens if they have an encounter with ICE?
Juan Pablo, timely question given the ramping up of more federal agents and potentially the mobilization by Trump of the National Guard that we have been told will be coming to Chicago. It's important that people know their rights. The Constitution remains intact. People have rights under the Constitution, regardless of whether they're U.S. citizens, legal permanent residents here under the color of law, or undocumented. And that is important to know and to practice. So knowing your rights is important. If people in neighborhoods that may not have or in communities, suburban communities that may not have a rapid response team, we can put you in touch with people who can help you organize that. This is an important time for everyone to stand up for all of our rights and to demonstrate that we will not be intimidated.
Thank you, Congressman. Can you extend a little bit more on what your office is doing and what you're doing to protect immigrant and mixed status families?
I am proud to say that I'm an outspoken congressional leader on humane immigration policy. And I'm fighting on every front to protect immigrant and mixed status families. I stood with Mayor Harold Washington 40 years ago when the city became the nation's first sanctuary city. As a county commissioner, I passed an ordinance that ended collaboration with ICE that was unfairly resulting in people being deported. And I'm leading legislation like the Protecting Sensitive Locations Act to stop immigration raids at places like schools, hospitals, churches, and courthouses. These need to be off bounds. These should be treated as sacred places and institutions. And I'm also a champion of funding that supports legal representation for low-income immigrants, resources that are more necessary today than ever. I'm working in close coordination with elected officials at every level of government, as well as a network of community leaders to do casework and rapid response in our neighborhoods, and of course to protect Cook County's welcoming status as well. My congressional colleagues and I were illegally denied entry to the Broadview facility by 290, which is being used for immigration detention. And of course, reports suggest bad conditions. That's why we've gone there to do oversight. As a leading voice on immigration policy on the Judiciary Committee and the Immigration Committee, I helped lead opposition from the committee for Democrats to Trump's big, ugly bill as well.
Thank you, Congressman. And just as a reminder, if you need any assistance from our offices, you can call us at 773-475-0833. If you need referrals to immigration organizations, if you need referrals for a lawyer, if you or your loved one, a neighbor is detained, we can help locate them and provide the necessary assistance and make sure that you reach out to our team. So Congressman, on this topic of immigration, it's clearly on people's minds. We have from Elmhurst a question from Alderman Rex Irby. he'd like to know, and we know we're limited on what we can provide on this because it is an open investigation, but any updates on the Franklin Park death or the killing of Silverio Villegas Gonzalez?
This shocking and unacceptable killing of a dad after dropping his children off at schools must not be swept under the rug. And we continue to speak out. We have requested investigations that are transparent in that regard, working with Senator Durbin and Senator Duckworth, with my colleague Delia Ramirez from the 3rd District of Illinois, to make sure that we continue to lift up this instance. As we had warned, something like this was bound to happen, given ICE's aggressive, racist profiling and pursuing people, pulling people over without identifying themselves, without any probable cause, without any court order for their apprehension, but simply continuing to racially and physically, and depending on where people live, seek to stop people, to interrogate them, to detain them, to kidnap them in many instances. So we'll continue to press this case. We've escalated our speaking out as we submitted that letter to the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security. We want to know the facts. We want to know everything that is documented, because the videos that have come out as it relates to the shooting of Silverio Villegas Gonzalez do not corroborate the public trial that the Department of Homeland Security sought to do on day one to convict Silverio without any evidence that he acted inappropriately and simply acted out of fear because the way that he was cornered in his car after dropping off his children. That should not happen anywhere in our country. And that's what I mean when I spoke on the House floor and underscored that we are becoming, through actions like this of federal agents, an American Gestapo.
Thank you, Congressman. Just a friendly reminder, if you're just joining us right now, you can find resources on our website under a tab called Know Your Rights, Conozca Sus Derechos. There are resources there that our team has put together, toolkits, guides on how to interact with ICE if you are stopped, the rights that you do have if they come to your home. And we also have resources on developing a plan for your family. How do you protect yourself? How do you protect your family? I'll make a plug here that Saturday at 10 a.m. we are hosting a virtual workshop to learn more about legal guardianship. What do you do in the case that you're apprehended? Who is in charge of your kids? Who you entrust with your children? And so we can share the link on Facebook, and make sure you monitor our social media to tune in for more resources. So, Congressman, one of the things that constituents want to know about is public safety. What efforts have you been working on that you can share with us?
In terms of public safety, it is a topic, or rather a cause, that's near and dear to me as a young organizer, and something that I've been working with over many decades. I've been working in the violence prevention space for a long time. Since the early 2000s, I founded Enlace, a community-based nonprofit whose community violence intervention model has been replicated nationwide and exists all over the metropolitan community and other places. In Congress, I've continued my violence prevention work by securing federal investments for violence prevention organizations across Chicagoland, while working with state, local, and federal officials to advance evidence-based reform as well. I voted for the passage of the bipartisan Safer Communities Act in 2022, which included $13 billion for enhanced background checks, first responder support, and mental health services. This is important stuff, and while the bill was a good first step, I strongly support common sense gun safety bills like the Bipartisan Background Checks Act that was recently reintroduced in the House. I'm working on the reintroduction of the Connecting Youth to Jobs Act to create jobs guarantee for young people who face barriers to employment. I strongly support public safety solutions that promote safe, effective policing and disrupt cycles of violence by investing in communities, making sure that folks have access to employment opportunities and basic services like education, housing, and healthcare. And that's how you build important relationships of trust that result in communities being safer. President Trump has been taking the exact opposite approach. He's gutted key grant provisions that prioritize community violence intervention programs that support de-escalatory, locally rooted public solutions. And I'm working directly with local organizations and government partners as we fight back against Trump's harmful agenda and cuts like these that will hurt communities all over the country.
Thank you, Congressman. I know you have a wealth of experience in the violence intervention, violence prevention space. Is there a story that sticks with you from your history in this space where you can say, look, I said that investment made a difference, that you can think back and say, we've got to keep doing this?
I saw youth in the little village community. I've seen them in other communities across the Southwest Side who were being lured into gang life, street life, drugs, and other very risky behavior. And by working with street intervention workers, by working with people who do community violence work, interruption, their lives were transformed. And I saw them not just graduating from high schools and getting involved in their communities and becoming leaders, becoming coaches, becoming tutors, becoming artists and performers, and becoming scholars. And I saw them graduate from colleges and universities and come right back to their communities and assume leadership roles and mentoring roles and being examples of how lives are transformed when we invest in our young people and in families.
Thank you for that, Congressman. I know it's a topic that you care very deeply for, so thank you for sharing that. In terms of a question that we have from switching kind of topics here from public safety into other type of safety related to infrastructure, housing, livelihood. This happened to you personally as well, that flooding has really impacted our area. We've had numerous floods in the last 2 years. There was a huge flood in 23 that you led efforts around the declaration and secured, I believe, over $200 million for the city of Chicago. You secured about $100 million for Cicero, and another, I believe, $200 to $300 million for Cook County. Constituents want to know what's going on with the flooding. Any updates on what kind of relief on flooding that we can get?
The flooding that has become so common, and this summer, people on Chicago's Southwest Side in the region around Midway Airport experienced one of the biggest floods ever in memory. Cicero has experienced some severe flooding. Summit, Berwyn, LaGrange and parts of LaGrange and LaGrange Park are also experiencing more frequent and larger storms. This is probably attributable to climate change. It is a warning that we need to invest in making communities more resilient, that we need to invest in greener infrastructure so that we can have better water management systems. And yes, it needs to continue to be a part of our agenda. We took important steps through the bipartisan infrastructure law to invest in these kinds of things. We did investments through the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a misnamed bill. It was investment in green, sustainable energy and resilience for communities. We need more of that. As a member of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, I will continue to speak out and advocate for inclusion of those types of investments in our communities. One, to prevent those types of floods from becoming so common, and two, to ensure that we have the readiness to respond when people are in need, whether it's through a disaster declaration and getting them the types of resources that they need to replace things that are lost, like stoves, like refrigerators, like air conditioners, many other appliances that people lost, and of course, to work with the city of Chicago, the county of Cook, and the state of Illinois to have a comprehensive approach to this new phenomenon that's attributable to the warming of the climate.
Thank you, Congressman. A reminder, if you have questions around the resources that are available for you for flood relief and any other resources, please, we welcome you to visit our offices. We're located in Brighton Park on Kedzie and Archer, and in Melrose Park over by Lake and Broadway on 19th. And you can also send us a message, and we're happy to connect you with some resources. So Congressman, switching to one other topic, it's no surprise that the Trump administration has been and is anti-union and anti-labor. Can you talk to us and share what actions you've taken in Congress and in the community to support workers?
Absolutely. This week will result in the formal ending of employment for 150,000 federal employees. They were pressured, coerced, or ordered to leave their jobs and take offers that were made to them. Oftentimes, not very generous offers, as is sometimes referred to severance packages. Think about the impact of all of this wealth of knowledge and expertise that will be lost. This is an example of the gutting of government without thinking through the consequences and the implications. 150,000 workers and many others who, as Trump has threatened, will be fired in the coming days if the shutdown persists, which is a bluff, which they can't do, which is illegal, and it will be resisted. But a part of my job in Congress, and let me talk about one other draconian action that this president took that showed his true colors. He has barred through executive order or attempted to the collective bargaining rights of federal unionized workers. No previous president had ever attempted an action of this scale and magnitude. Trump is trying it. There is pushback. Part of that pushback comes from the Labor Caucus. I am a member of the Labor Caucus because I represent a working class district, a district with many members of unions across a variety of unions, both public unions and private unions in the private sector. I believe that's a part of my core values, and we're pushing back. We work with people to try to secure better contracts where they work. We advocate for labor laws that will recognize and provide the opportunity for workers to more freely unionize and to engage in collective bargaining. We know that unions are part of the reasons that many of our families, our parents, were able to retire with dignity and enjoy the golden years of their lives. And of course, we want to also ensure that our children and grandchildren will also be able to enjoy what our democratic leader calls the good life. Security, the ability to retire with dignity, to have vacations, to have leisure time, and to enjoy oneself. That is part of the American dream for working people.
Thank you, Congressman. Switching to another topic, you are the senior Democratic member from Illinois in the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Can you talk to us about some of the efforts that you're doing there to lead work and ensure we get resources here in Illinois?
As a member of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, I am working to try to make the surface reauthorization bill that has to be passed by the end of this year, that would take effect next year, as large as possible. We need to continue to invest in infrastructure that includes transit, that provides infrastructure for prevention of flooding, as I just talked about in one of the prior questions. And we need to provide people both in Chicago and in suburban Cook and DuPage County, across all the metro area, better transit systems so that they can move freely through buses, through rail, through PACE, through the Chicago Transit Authority, as those systems modernize, as they become, as they should, safer, cleaner, more reliable, so that people don't have the added expense of having to own a car and finding that to be the only means for their transportation. So that remains a priority of mine, and I will be pushing for that inclusion. In addition to that, I'm also an advocate and a co-sponsor to create a public bank known as the National Infrastructure Bank, to ensure that we have enough resources to do the types of projects that address our infrastructure needs, rebuild our bridges, invest in real transit, invest in high-speed rail, so that we're not lagging behind other countries in North America, in Europe, or in Asia. We need to remain a leader, and that's what the National Infrastructure Bank would do. It would be on the scale of what was done to get America out of the Great Depression during the 1930s.
Thank you, Congressman. So switching back to immigration, we have again a lot of questions around immigration.
Yes.
There's a question here from a constituent online. They'd like to know what immigration, if someone is stopped, what are the proper procedures, right? If ICE stops them, what steps should they take? We understand, right, that the Supreme Court in the decision a few weeks ago essentially gave the green light to stop people and profile them. So can you talk a little bit about what you're hearing on this and what you recommend to people that are unsure what to do if they're stopped by ICE?
Yes, the Constitution remains a protection of everyone who lives in America. And that means that people have the right to remain silent, the right to ask, why are you stopping me? And they have the right not to share any information that would confirm the legal status of a person. I know that with the aggressive enforcement actions that ICE and other federal agents are pursuing, it's difficult to defend, to protect, to exercise your rights, but we must. Perhaps the most important thing is simply to not provide information that would incriminate you, that would verify, for example, that you are undocumented or that you're here under a certain status unless you are a permanent resident or a U.S. citizen. And if you want further information on this, feel free to call my office or to call the hotline of the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. There are other groups out there as well that can provide this type of information. And if you want to host a session for you and your neighbors, your grouping in church or school, let us know. We can help make that happen so that more people learn about how to protect their rights during these very challenging times. And the Supreme Court essentially giving the green light to ICE, to federal agents, to engage in profiling, to stop people because of their appearance, to stop people because of where they're walking or traveling or moving or driving to. It is shocking. This is a huge setback for the precedents that protect people's civil rights in America. While the decision is temporary and the court was not forthcoming in explaining why they ruled against case law going back decades in federal court, in federal decisions, in appellate court decisions, or in Supreme Court decisions. They simply said, you may continue to engage in this aggressive, racist behavior. Hopefully the court will reconsider their action when they have to address this and provide more detail on what their rationale is. But this certainly overturned decades of legal precedent and of civil rights protections of Americans.
Thank you, Congressman. And just as a reminder for those that are tuning in, we've got the defense hotline or the ICER hotline for more information, or if you know someone who's been apprehended or you need some support or have questions, you can call 855-435-7693, and we'll add the link and that phone number on our Facebook comments as well, so that you can visit them for more information. They've got an immigration hub with resources for all types of, if you're a small business owner, if you're an educator, if you're stay at home, right? What rules and what rights do you have at home, at a business site, when you're driving? So please make sure to visit the ICER website. They also have an app where they can verify sightings. We know that there are a lot of different very committed rapid response networks who are going around to verify and provide support. We want to make sure that we're being cautious about what we're posting and that it's verified. And so make sure you sign up for the ICE on ICE app that ICER is hosting and website to follow live and correct information. So Congressman, as we close here for our final question before we go to your closing comments, you represent a district that's largely working class, immigrant. 1 out of 3 people are foreign born, and the largest group of immigrants have been waiting over 20 years for some type of relief, some type of benefit, some type of permanence and protection. What message do you have for your constituents?
To a significant degree, the crisis that we are experiencing, the repression, the targeting, the profiling of our community, the terrible narratives, false narratives on television from the president, from the Department of Homeland Security, paid ads, the recruiting of additional ICE officers to do what the American public is now saying they don't want. And that is the selective enforcement, the racial profiling, the cruelty, the masks, the refusal to identify themselves. That's not America. And it's starting to look a lot like a fascist state. And that's why it is so important for people to push back, because Americans don't approve of that. And you can see it in poll after poll after poll. They also oppose Trump's economic agenda, including the imposition of these tariffs that are going to be having an impact on the economy. And this aggressive immigration enforcement is also going to hurt the economy much, much more in the coming weeks and months. So the important part here is to push back, to continue to fight for democracy. Part of the reason that we are here today in this terrible climate is because of Congress's inability, due to politics and exploiting the issue of immigrants and of immigration and of the border for 40 years. Next year will be the 40th anniversary since an immigration bill was enacted by Congress. 40 years. Think about how much the world has changed in 40 years. We didn't have cell phones 40 years ago. We didn't have the relationship that exists today between Canada, the US, and Mexico. We hadn't had all the technology that we have, yet Congress has failed in enacting immigration reform. And thus, you have people who have been across my district, across the country, a part of the 11 million of undocumented people who have been wanting to get in line if there was a line, who have been wanting to have a system that is renewed, a system that's based on humanity and humane immigration policy, that's based on the economic and the social needs of the country, to have an opportunity to seek a pathway to legalization, a pathway to a work permit, a pathway to U.S. citizenship as well. That's why we've gone through all these machinations that always seek to scapegoat immigrants who are hardworking, who contribute immensely to our country, and who have served in the armed forces of our country as well. So anytime that they're needed, they step up. So we are needed, but we're not loved. But it's mostly because of opportunistic politicians who don't want a fix to what the country needs, which is a modern, humane, orderly immigration system. And that's what I will continue to fight for in the U.S. Congress. So as we sign off here, I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. We know that these are very, very challenging and difficult times. I want to thank everyone who is involved in their communities, in their neighborhoods, in upholding the Constitution, the rule of law, due process, and democracy. Thank you again for being here tonight and for asking some tough questions. And what I heard tonight is exactly what I've heard across all of our district. My office is here to help you, whether it's with immigration, with casework, with healthcare questions, or connecting to local resources. Remember, please stay connected, stay engaged, stay loud. The road ahead will be tough, but remember that we've been here before, and together we'll fight. Power belongs to the people, and I'm here to make sure that it stays that way. Let's keep our democracy alive.
Thank you, Congressman. Reminder, you can visit our offices in the suburbs. We have our office in Melrose Park, located at 125 North 19th Avenue. You can call us at 773-342-0774. You can visit us at the Southwest Chicago office on Archer and Kedzie, and you can call us at 773-475-0833. Lastly, before we close, we want to give a huge shout out to all the immigration organizations from across the 4th District who are helping protect families, from Paso out in the northwest suburbs, to CSPL out in Proviso, to ICER and TRP, NIJC, all the lawyers, thank you so much. We couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the evening.
Good night.